Good day, listeners. My name is Audrey Polton. Welcome to our first educational program in a series of 5. These programs are produced especially for Grade 8 physical science learners. The main aim of these educational programs is to help the learners to understand some of the challenging content of this subject better. During this program, we're going to listen to a conversation between two physical science learners, Martha and Rusa. So listen carefully and enjoy.
Yeah, tell you what, friend. My mom scolded me in front of visitors yesterday after church, and it was so embarrassing.
Serious?
I'm telling you.
No wonder you look like a frightened koala today. I mean, just look at your face. Anyways, what happened?
Eish! You're not helping here. Here I was expecting your sympathy, and all I get is you making fun of me. Anyways, while cooking, I lost track of my timing and the food burned down.
Why do I have a feeling you were maybe on your phone? But I so feel you. It must have been pretty embarrassing.
My dear, I felt the whole world crashing down right in front of my own eyes. For a moment, I just wished I could uncook the food or something. So I repeat the whole process.
What a crazy thought. And to think of how you're always bragging about what an excellent chef you are, it just makes me want to keep laughing at you all day. Anyways, getting to your whole uncooking the food mess, don't you remember the lesson we had on physical and chemical changes?
Yeah, I slept the whole lesson, I think. Good gracious. Mr. Shimpi was so fascinated with the lesson. He did not spot me having my beauty sleep at the back with Helena.
Really, Rusa? You do realize that you're not serious, right? Anyways, while cooking, a chemical change took place, meaning you can't reverse the process. In other words, it's a permanent change.
Are you trying to tell me that there's no scientific base procedure which can help me get the reactants back? Which in this case, my raw food?
You won't find a single one, even if you had to consult the smartest scientist on earth, Rosa. The cooked food is a new product, and it has different properties from the raw food.
Seriously? But there are some reactions that can be reversed. For instance, freezing water, and then you can melt the ice to get your water back.
Oh yes, Rosa. That brings us to the concept of physical change then. A physical change is reversible since no new substances are formed. So melting and all phase changes are good examples of physical changes.
Ah, interesting. Meaning, unlike chemical changes, which are permanent, a physical change is actually temporary.
That's definitely right. Now, I'm feeling myself. I feel like I'll surely make a good teacher someday, since you're picking up on all that in a relative short amount of time.
Have you stopped for a while to just consider the fact that maybe it isn't even about your so-called teaching skills? Maybe I'm just a good learner after all.
Funny, Rusa. Okay, I admit that maybe you are indeed a brilliant learner, but since you are bragging about being all good, at least tell me 2 examples of chemical change apart from cooking.
Just stop giving me those Hulk eyes already. You're slowing down my thinking process.
I can see you're really struggling, Rosa. Let me give you a clue. Maybe it will assist in your so-called thinking process. Well, a chemical change always involves an energy change whereby the temperature either decreases or increases.
Now, does that mean that in physical change, there's no energy change or what?
Not necessarily, because it might be involved sometimes, but it doesn't always happen.
Wow, that information have just come in handy for me. In fact, I've just thought of an example right now. I'm thinking of burning wood. At the beginning of the reaction, the wood has different properties from the ash that will be produced at the end. This process can be reversed. Again, during the burning, the temperature increases.
You super nailed it, girl. Well, let me also give you another everyday example that we've learned in biology. I'm referring to digestion. You know, When food gets digested in the intestines, the end products or the feces are quite different from the food that was ingested.
Gosh, I'm getting pretty good at this. I guess those are enough examples of a chemical change. I suggest we move on to physical changes. This time around, it's you to start.
Fair enough. Let me start with something we usually do at the village. Let me say, your grandmother asks you to cook dry maize, but the maize seeds are mixed with bean seeds, and you'll have to separate the two. This is part of separation of mixtures, and it falls under physical changes. This is because the process can be reversed, and in this case, there is no energy change involved.
Great example. It's my turn now. I have a delicacy in store for you, my friend. In fact, my thought is actually like a science learner with Mr. Shimbi as a tutor. Remember the lesson we had on simple distillation, a method of separating solutions? Then, here is a scientific example of physical change. A separation of salt from water using simple distillation. This is a temporary change and it's reversible.
Ooh, girl. Since we are now masters at this topic, let's make a deal on the upcoming physical science test on Friday. The one who scores less gets to buy cinema tickets so we can go watch the latest movie, Birds of Prey.
Cool, I'm in. And tell you what, everyone has been talking about that movie and apparently it's to die for. Just go check out its trailer.
What a mouthful! Such an educative yet amazing interchange between Rusa and Martha. Now let's give a recap on what we all learned from their conversation today. Physical change is a reaction in which no new substance is formed, while a chemical change is one in which new products with different properties are formed. So how exactly can we differentiate between the two? Well, a physical change is temporary. An energy change is not always involved, whereas a chemical change is permanent and energy change is always involved. I'm sure you were listening attentively as the learners were discussing about a few examples of physical and chemical change. I therefore leave it up to you to think of more everyday examples. But before we call it a day, I would like to leave you with a question on whether rusting is a form of a physical or a chemical change. So listeners, that concludes our program for today. Thanks for joining us. From me, Audrey Polton, goodbye.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.